Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove. I'm back in Richmond and I'm staring across the table at Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. It's good to have you back.
It's been over a week since I've looked into your beard.
I had to turn your chair around. It was too sad to not have a person in that chair.
So today's show, we're going to be talking USA-Costa Rica. The game is coming up on Saturday, the second game of the Greg Berhalter era. We're going to do it by answering listener questions that we got from email and Twitter. But before we get into that, I think I owe our listeners a little bit of an explanation because I done disappeared.
You did.
I did.
You did. No, I'm going to say not voluntarily.
Yes.
is a way to put that.
So last week...
You were taken.
I was taken. Liam Neeson saved me. It was fine. We went down to Florida, me and my wife, and the plan was to keep doing the show with Taylor, right? And I did the first show with you, the Tim Weah scored a goal show,
yep.
And then Weston McKennie
was
great
nice.
Show. The following morning, I was hospitalised.
You were.
That's why I went missing all of last week is I was in hospital.
And I just want to say before we get further into that like it is very indicative of who Daryl Grove is that like before we started recording that show, you were like, yeah, I've been having some stomach pains. And I was like, oh, okay. And then after we were finished, you were like, yeah, there was only twice was I bent over before I could respond. And I was like, yeah, I didn't pick any of that up. So Daryl Grove, consummate professional, also high pain tolerance, it seems.
There we go. Well, over audio, at
yes.
least.
Yes.
If you'd seen the visual, maybe not. So here's what's been going on. So I went to hospital with those stomach pains. They did a scan, and what they found was a tumour in my colon, which has also spread to my liver. So not good news, obviously. But as you can hear, I'm doing pretty well.
Yep.
It got immediately treated in an emergency way, so the immediate stomach pain is gone. But it's going to be a future of surgery, chemotherapy.
Yep.
It's going to be probably a bit of a long road.
Yes.
Right? But I've good doctors, good plan of attack, and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
right? I just wanted to make sure to share that with listeners so that everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's and it's key to point out there. Maybe I'm just saying this for me because it's nice to repeat these things to myself. That you've got your plan, you've got a lot of a great support network around you, and you've got people who are already working on it. So that's all very comforting. And then I think for me personally, it was comforting to talk to you, 2 days into your hospitalization, and you were just like, you had just gotten this diagnosis, and you were very like, all right, I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Yeah. You know me, I like a plan, right? I like to know, I'm always like, what's going on? Where are we going for lunch, Taylor?
Yeah, but...
And you're like, we'll figure it out later. I'm like, no, let's decide where we're going for lunch.
There's a decent chance I cry on air for the first time ever. Yeah, but man, I think, if that's me, and I think a lot of people, that's a, woe is me, the world's not fair, I don't deserve this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that...
I mean, that is all true.
Well, that's definitely true. You don't deserve that. There's lots of other people out there who do. But... Yikes. But I would say that it's very indicative of who Daryl Grove is, that wasn't it. It wasn't this isn't fair. There was no melodrama. There was no, well, that's it for the show. It was just I'm good to go, which I think tells you all you need to know about Mr. Grove.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, man.
So speaking of the show, there's going to be a surgery in the very near term, which is going to put me out of action for at least a week. Luckily, as you learned last week, Taylor is very good at booking very good guests, so there'll still be lots and lots of Total Soccer Show. Beyond that, chemo I know can knock you about a bit, but what I've been told is, hey, keep doing what you're doing because you got to, because the show's so good. No, because you got to keep working.
I wish your doctor had said that.
That was a huge fan. A huge fan. Because it's good to stay active, but then there might be some days where maybe I'm not feeling it. So but I'll still be around for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
How about
that? What? No, you're around forever, and that's how it's going to be. Yeah. No. So we'll keep it going. Daryl will be here, and then when Daryl's not here, I'll be here talking to other people.
There we go.
Speaking of those other people, I did want to take a moment to say how much I appreciate George Qureshi.
Oh, yeah, me and you both.
I know you were. Not with him in Florida, but you had seen him in Florida. But I know he checked in on you pretty routinely, and his family was pretty great for you all.
He came in while I was in hospital. He came and watched the Man United Arsenal game with me. He visited twice, took my wife out to dinner. And then also he put us up for 2 nights after we were discharged from the hospital. That's why we ended up doing the USA Panama quick take, hot take at George's kitchen table.
Yeah. And then for me, he helped.
Man's a saint.
He helped make some introductions for some of the people who've been on the show, some people who you'll be hearing in the near future.
Oh, he's helped us both.
Yeah. He definitely has. And I'll say this. I texted him this as well, that he helped me in the sense that you being in Florida was. like it was scary for everything that we've already talked about, but it was also the kind of impotence of not being able to do anything, not being able to go check on you.
Right.
I love you, but I don't think I could. I don't think it would have been helpful for me to fly down to Florida. Is I guess what I mean. So knowing that like George was there, I mean, obviously your wife Shannon there helping, but just knowing that there was like another person who could sort of support her, back her up, spell her at times, keep you in good spirits, which George is more than capable of doing.
Yeah, he's good company.
Here's my only question,
yeah,
which was my genuine concern. Did George make you watch random stuff from YouTube and Instagram?
He didn't.
What a saint. What a gentleman.
I've forgotten the name of the thing that he likes to watch.
Kook Slams.
Kook Slams. It's where people have essentially...
I know it because it sounds racist.
It doesn't.
It really does. It's on my list of words that sound racist but aren't.
It's essentially water sports accidents, right?
Koozie. It's also on there.
It's people like surfing and falling off.
Yes,
and
it is.
Like that.
It's just people...
If you ever meet George, he would love to show you.
Yes. Oh, and he absolutely will.
I did, the day before I left, I recorded a second interview with George where we didn't talk about USA Panama. We talked about what it's like to edit The Athletic. And we did a thing where he walked me through the entire process of one athletic story. It was the Mike Piazza story, from the pitch all the way through to when it's published. Then we answered all those questions we got from Twitter, and we got deeper into his claim that sports don't matter, which he mentioned at the end of the USA Panama review.
Yeah.
Some people were very upset.
It wasn't well received.
It wasn't well received, and neither should it have been. But we got deeper into it. I think we got a more nuanced version of it.
All right.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah. And maybe even a retraction.
Perfect. But I also look forward to that from a like Nathan for you standpoint of you've kind of learned the ins and outs of George's aspect of the Athletic, and then I've been talking to Paul Tenorio a lot and picking his brain.
Yeah.
So I feel like between the two of us, we can start like Dumb Athletic.
Yeah.
And we can just run our parody website where we like write the same stories.
That is a good idea. If we get any more free time, we'll do that.
I had a joke. I was scared to say it. Not going to say it on air. And I'll leave it at that.
I know.
People going to ask on Twitter.
All right, you ready to talk some U.S. men's national team? Okay.
I do enjoy that for the first time ever, discussing the U.S. men's national team is not the biggest downer on the show.
Yeah, right. Well, it's an upper, right?
Yeah,
I know you watched the game for your interview with Joe Patrick, which, by the way, sorry, Joe Lowry. Joe Patrick's the Atlanta guy, right?
Yep.
I really enjoyed that show. I thought it was excellent. If people haven't heard that, I think go back and listen to it. There's a lot of good tactical detail. The tactical detail that I promised would be there without knowing it. No pressure, guys.
Joe provided that, and I asked questions and listened.
So thank you to Joe.
Absolutely.
I rewatched. I enjoyed, and I saw so many things that this US team is doing that's got me excited for the future.
Right.
And luckily, we have a whole other game coming up this Saturday, a stated kickoff time of 3:30 Eastern. USA v Costa Rica.
And it's weird that even the stated kickoff times have given us reason for optimism, right?
Yeah, I noticed that was it Sunday? Yeah, Sunday's game against Panama was listed as televised start time. Was 8 p.m.
Yep.
They didn't even say kickoff time. They said televised start time, 8 p.m. And then kickoff was 8:07.
It was.
I think we've moved the needle a little more towards honesty.
We definitely have.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of like honesty, I feel like we've just sort of dropped a bomb on some people.
Yeah.
It occurs to me, and we moved right along. So if you need to like pause and take a moment, you can, like do that, and then just prepare yourself for a long conversation about the U.S. national team to get right back into normalcy.
Sorry, I didn't think. Actually, I've got very comfortable talking about it. I've got very comfortable talking about my colon. A lot of people, which is an odd experience.
You mean for Americans, that's a colon, just so you know.
Excuse me.
It never gets not funny to me.
After the surgery, it'll be a semicolon.
That might be your best one in a while. This made you funny, apparently. Who knew?
All right, so we put the call out for Twitter questions, specifically about the US national team, but even more specifically, hopefully, I kind of nudge people towards, please ask USA Costa Rica questions. Someone asked something about MLS designated players, which we can't get to.
That's all I've prepared for.
Are you ready? I assume we'll just go back and forth through a bunch of these questions that we've chosen. Okay. First question is from, this is Twitter name, actual name, Brian Battle.
Yep.
Wants to know, why do you guys
I'm so confused why you put actual name. Now I know.
That's his
gotcha.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think Greggy B...
So many nicknames for Greg Berhalter.
I love it, right? Greggy B chose to break out a tactical wrinkle. I know a few people were not thrilled with the overuse of the word wrinkle, but that's what it was. Why do you guys think Greggy B chose to break out a tactical wrinkle like a false 2, this is what Nick Lima did, for a pretty inconsequential USMNT friendly? Isn't that something you spring on an opponent in a must-win game?
I have 3 sort of answers for this one, and I would say...
Okay, so my dreams of going through these quickly are not...
we can go through them fast, because I can say, basically, if I were to summarize them, it would be because it was a statement of intent to the fans.
Yep.
I think it was a statement of intent to the players.
Yep.
And I think it was also a challenge to the players of you're going to be asked to do stuff that maybe is new to you.
Yep.
You've never been asked to do before, either for club or country.
Yep.
But you got to get used to it. You got to get used to it fast. And then for the fans, it was sort of like, hey, we're going to spring different stuff. We're going to try different stuff. But at the core of it, there's going to be a plan. So even if there's a difference, even if things change from game to game, you can always trust that there's going to be a plan. I genuinely felt like that was part of what he was doing here.
I think so too. I also think this false 2 thing, where Nick Lima goes from right back to midfield, or whoever the right back is goes from right back to midfield, it's not necessarily a thing that you just sort of surprise on someone in a hex game when you haven't really practiced it. It's more a thing that it's your system, it's your style of play, and it's part of your weaponry that you build on and you work on till you get right.
Yeah.
So essentially it's more important, for me, it's more important to get reps doing this thing rather than having the element of surprise.
Yes.
Yeah?
And as long as we're saying for me, I want to say for me here, I'm not saying this was like necessarily a thing Greg Berhalter was doing or even a thing that he consciously thought of or even a thing he meant to do, whatever. But I would say that, like, for me, what stood out is when you're getting a new, younger coach coming in to take over the national team, there was an element of, like, when you get the young person who's now the CEO of a company and they're like, we're going to revamp the website and we're going to do this and we're going to establish a greater social media. Like, it's like they're...
Everybody get a Twitter account.
Exactly. But they're gearing it towards, like, we are trying to get younger. We're trying to incorporate new ideas. And that's what this felt like to me was, like, a younger coach, a new coach coming in and being like, hey, we're going to play like Man City briefly. Yeah. It just sort of was like, whoa, okay. It's like, so other things are possible. We're going to try different things.
It also had a more practical implication, right? Which is the way the US plays now is possession football, move the ball quickly, move the ball around, open up spaces, try and exploit those spaces, right? That's part of the positional play thing that Greg Berhalter goes with. And part of that is going to be overloading numbers in various areas, right? So it's more about that. It's an example of just overloading numbers in this case in central midfield, right? Because you end up with 4 central midfielders, Bradley and Lima and then Roldan and Mihailovic. Yep. So it's more about that than it is just the one tactical variation. I think we might see the same thing again, maybe against Costa Rica, maybe not, but I think we'll see multiple different things where the goal is just overload the numbers in a certain area, and that will be the surprise each time.
Right. Well, speaking of surprising, I'm actually going to the reason why I was just scrolling on my iPad here was to get to a question that I feel like relates. I'm going to ask you. Jumping ahead to Robbie C, asking, will Berhalter's system change based on home and away? In the past, the U.S. has been known to bunker on the road and attack more at home. It feels like since we're talking about nuances and changing it up, this question fits here.
So this is a bigger picture question. I actually think no. Because when I see a Berhalter team play, when I've seen Columbus play or when I've seen this US team play, it looks like there's a defensive shape, right? Yep. Against Panama, I still think it was a 4-4-2. I've heard people say it was a 4-3-3. But it looked to me like a pretty compact 4-4-2 that people couldn't get through. And I think that's probably always going to be the case. But then when we have the ball, we automatically become a possession team that wants to hold onto the ball and move the ball around. I think we're going to do that always. I don't think we're going to, for example, have an away game where Greg Berhalter says, okay, our only chance here is to keep that 4-4-2, but then when we get the ball back, we're going to transition and attack quickly on a counter-attack. I think it's always going to be, the principle of it is going to be that possession and open the opposition up. So I actually think it's going to be, like, there might be times when we spend longer in that 4-4-2 defending, right, if we're playing a really good team. But I think when we get the ball back, I think the goal is going to be the same because it'll be the thing that we keep working on.
So we may go like real nerdy nuance real fast here.
I also may be wrong.
I'm just curious from like because that's an interesting perspective I hadn't thought about. Like so. I guess in my mind, it's not like it doesn't necessarily seem possible or doesn't necessarily follow to be like we're gonna sit back and be defensive in like 2 banks of 4 and kind of be rigid there. But then once we get the ball back, be a possession team. Like, I don't see how you can sit and be possession. But
if you watch them against Panama, they didn't sit deep in the 4-4-2. They had it at like roughly midfield. It was like a mid block, right? Okay. So you're not starting from a total crouch.
I see. I misunderstood.
You're just starting from a very disciplined shape. Like I thought part of what really worked against Panama is we didn't give up many chances because we never got stretched out. Because like when we watch some Saracen teams, like the winger would leave that 4-4-2 and just go chasing out to the wing, and then there's a giant hole. We didn't do that. We really kept the shape really nice and tight for the most part. Yeah.
All right. I think here is a good time for me to say that I feel like a lot of this conversation, like
this one right now,
yes, like the conversation we're having right now, and really the conversation around the national team currently, it feels like a conversation that could be totally right. What Daryl's saying could be totally right 4 months from now. We could be 100% wrong.
Yes,
and I say that because it's a new coach coming in, it's a new system, things are changing, and he's figuring stuff out. So based on what we've seen so far, like I think there's a chance you're right, but I also think if past is precedent, there's a chance that if a full strength Brazil is coming to town, maybe we're sitting back and trying to play on the counter, because I can't see trying to play possession-based technical soccer against a team that is just better than us at doing that.
Wouldn't it be exciting?
It would be very exciting, but I guess
Columbus Crew never had to play Brazil, is that?
Not that I remember. I feel like that would have stood out more. So I guess, but I say that disclaimer.
New expansion franchise.
Yeah. I say that as a disclaimer just to say that, like, I hope you're right. I hope that is something. Yeah. But my answer was more so, I think maybe they change home and away, but more so I think it's about the strength of the opponent. That if we're going away to Guatemala, I don't think that we're going to, like, sit back and be defensive the way we might be against a more established team like Brazil.
It could also be that the personnel changes, right? You won't have maybe Mihailovic and Roldan as your two 8/10s. You might end up with two more defensively capable. No, actually, Roldan's pretty defensively capable. But you know what I'm saying? The personnel may change so that there's more defensive resistance.
All right. Good answer.
Next question.
Sure.
Comes from Michael Allen. Michael Allen wants to know, back to the Panama game, why aren't more people talking about John Lewis's great assist instead of Christian Ramirez's tapping off the pass?
All right. I have an honest answer for this, which is not going to be popular, because it was the third goal in a January friendly against Panama, scored by the fifth substitute, assisted by the second substitute. That is my answer. And I really do think that's part of it, and it was after Panama had already made 5 changes. That is sort of the way it tends to go with these types of friendlies, is stuff that happens, unless it's particularly dramatic or against a particularly strong opponent, stuff that happens once those substitutes start rolling, it tends to fall off in terms of the coverage. But I think the other thing that probably factors into this is that people who listen to this show might know Jonathan Lewis. NYCFC fans might know Jonathan Lewis.
They might do. They've barely seen him.
That's my point. And like MLS fans might know Jonathan Lewis, but they might not. And he was one of those players who I saw. There were tons of tweets in this game about, like, I watch MLS. I'm not familiar with half of these teams. I watch Major League Soccer. I don't know. I'm an NYCFC fan. I haven't even seen him play. Like, and so I think that's the other thing. It's a lack of familiarity. So nobody feels entirely comfortable talking about a player who hasn't risen to that level, where there is that level of like, ooh, Josh Sargent's playing. There's that hype there. There's that enthusiasm. It's sort of like, oh, it's another young guy getting some minutes. Great. But it wasn't this is a breakthrough moment.
I agree with that. I have an alternative explanation that could be a things can be two things thing, right? Where they're both accurate. I think it was just a bigger narrative that Christian Ramirez came off the bench and scored after Jesse Zardes hadn't managed to score.
You know, I just want to say here, that was bullet point 2A that I forgot to get to. I'm not pleased with myself. Yeah, focus shift to Christian Ramirez scoring on his debut, because goals always get the headlines.
Yeah, and a goal scorer scoring a goal, like, quote, doing what he does, unquote, Then the other thing is...
Yeah, you don't see headlines that are like, forward scores goals off of well-placed cross. Like, it's always like, hero scores goal. Yeah. That's it.
The other thing is that, much as I enjoyed Jonathan Lewis's game... Apart from this one moment, he wasn't brilliant, right? He had a few moments when do you remember the great Sean Johnson low kick out?
Yeah.
That could have really been something, but Jonathan Lewis cut inside and got tackled. Not that he had a horrible game, especially because in the end, he has this moment where he leans to the right, then accelerates to the left. I can't remember who the defender is, but he gets left behind. Yeah. It is a great move from Jonathan Lewis, and it's a great little glimpse of what he's capable of. But it really was his only moment in the game. It wasn't the capstone to a wonderful performance. It was kind of like the one thing where he showed what he can do.
Yeah. But my final point on this one is just that, like, but if you are hyped about that Jonathan Lewis play, if you're hyped about Jonathan Lewis, then be hyped.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a weird enthusiasm and negativity around the national team, it seems like, of I'm excited about Jonathan Lewis. Calm down, it's only one game. Yeah, but he did great. Oh, it's only like January. Like, it just feels like
we moved the ball quickly. It was Panama City.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like
it's like Kermit and Kermit with the hood.
But I just like, it's okay to like a thing. Like, it's okay. Yeah. And so, to me, like, I think we're going to talk about our opinions of this team, which is what we've always done. And that's what I feel comfortable saying, is that, like, I'm excited for Jonathan Lewis, but it was not the, like, most exciting moment of that game, and probably not even one that I'm really going to focus on until we see more of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to look at the Panama game is it was a great start. It was exactly what we wanted from Berhalter to begin with. You can see the beginnings of the style of play. but it's Panama's C team, so you've got to see it against better teams. Speaking of, we're about to move into a phase of questions that specifically address the US-Costa Rica game. But first, today, Tally was giving me that look like, hey, but first.
Oh, no. You just beat me to it, because my segue was going to be, and talking about the national team is a thing we're going to do after this this word from our advertiser, because today's show is brought to you by Grip 6 belts.
Grip 6 belts. I can't remember if I'm wearing mine. I'm wearing mine.
I am not, because I'm wearing soccer warm-ups, because I'm going to play a game after this.
Oh, yeah.
But if I were wearing a belt with my warm-ups or soccer shorts, it would be a Grip 6 belt.
Grip 6 belts, which hopefully you've heard about on this show by now. They are the only belt with no holes and no belt flap hanging out. These are a different kind of belt.
I said it in jest, but I'm actually serious that if we did have to wear a belt to play soccer for whatever reason, you have to wear like a belt in football, it would be a Grip 6. It no holes, no flap hanging out, so then you don't worry about it getting caught on anything. Low profile, ultra lightweight, so it's really comfortable, but you don't have extra weight that's weighing you down. It feels like it's a good belt for soccer.
And I know you've heard us talk about Grip 6.
And you don't want to wear suspenders.
You've heard us talk about Grip 6 probably once a week for a while at this point. Don't just take our word for it. There are all kinds of Amazon reviews, Trustpilot reviews, Facebook reviews who are all equally enthusiastic about their Grip 6 belt. It is a belt reimagined, and you can't quite grasp the concept until you wear it, and then you're like, oh.
And we've had questions about like, what is it that we like so much, or what is it that makes them so unique? We've talked about a few of them. I genuinely enjoy that, like, they manufacture in the United States, which is great, using domestic materials and machinery. That's great. But it's the machinery part that I think is incredible.
Why?
Because they build it themselves. Like, they basically build it, I forget, like bespoke, I guess. Like, they make it to the needs of the product they're making, which I feel like is kind of cool, because it's not just like, oh, yeah, we bought this belt machine and now we make belts. It sort of is like we built a machine that allows us to make the belts that fit
we invented.
Our vision.
The thing that we invented.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome.
We really love this company.
Way to be, Grip 6. Way to be.
Way to be. And if you look at Grip 6 and you're like, yeah, that is a product that I want, but I'm the type of person that only wants to pay 80% of the full price. I got good news for you.
What's that news, Daryl?
If you go to grip6.com/TSS, and the URL is spelled GRIP, the number 6.com/TSS, there is a special offer page for Total Soccer Show listeners where you can get 20% off the cost of an individual belt, or about 30+% off the cost of a 3-pack.
That's pretty outstanding. So one more time, how can people get that one, Daryl?
It's grip6.com/TSS.
All right. Thank you to Grip 6 for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show. Let's get back to answering some questions about the U.S. national team and the upcoming friendly against Costa Rica, as well as the most recent friendly against Panama. USMNT players fan. That's all one.
I wonder what they're into.
I think they actually they're the literal fan. That's what it is. They make fans for the players. How close to Costa Rica's best squad is the squad we're facing? If it's not close to the A team, how should we think about team and individual performances?
It is not close to the A team. Anyone in Europe is not here.
Nope.
Some MLS players
I got some names for you.
Are not here, but there are some names that you'll recognize.
Yeah. Not here, Keylor Navas, Oscar Duarte, Christian Gamboa, Brian Ruiz, Celso Borges, Joel Campbell, Christian Bolaños, all those more familiar names. But there's a key wrinkle in there for me. We're going to say wrinkle a bunch of times on this show, which is that by everything I've read...
Never protest a word we've said too much, because we're going to say it even more. You just put it in our heads if you say that.
Yeah, and you know, when you learn a new thing, like people don't like it, you know what it does? Makes another wrinkle in your brain. But by everything I've read, I'm not claiming to be a Los Ticos expert, but I do know their nickname. So, there you go. Is that they're in a similar situation to the U.S. Obviously, they qualified for the World Cup, but it's a new manager, and it's a sort of situation where a lot of those players... Thank you. Goodness gracious.
You've missed me, right?
I mean, I missed you until, true story, Daryl came in today and said, I've got this situation going on, you have to edit. And that felt kind of harsh to me. He didn't really do that. But he could have, and it would have worked. But they're in a situation where those names are, with a lot of them, like 34, 35, 33. And so they're in the situation where...
It's time for a refresh, right?
Yeah, and so they're not calling in the European-based players. It's not a FIFA window. But it still is the case that I'm not sure how many of them would have been called in the first place, because I think they are trying out younger players, different people in different situations.
And this is weird for them, right? Because they're not having 2 games. They're just having this one-off game in February.
Which was super helpful, because I was really excited to look at who they had just played so I could see who they were playing.
The answer is no one. One important point is that the coach, who you mentioned, Gustavo Matosas, you'll read that he took over in October 2018, but he apparently only observed. There were wins over Chile and Peru, which had me thinking, oh, Costa Rica's onto something. This will be his first game in charge. So at the very least, you're going to see a team that's amped, right? This is first game under new coach. A lot of younger or fringe players. Everybody, like, there are some no caps and there's some guys with like 4 or 5 caps. They're all going to be like out there to impress the new guy, right? So it's going to add an extra wrinkle to this game. It's going to add an extra element to this game.
If you, like me, looked at those friendlies that you talked about with Peru and Chile, right?
3-2 and 3-2.
And you saw that he was listed as the head coach, so you assumed then that he was the head coach then, and you drew some takeaways from that one. Then maybe what you may have taken away, because I do think it still is worth noting, is that of their starting 11, 5 players from that 11 are in the squad.
Should we go through the players that people either will or should recognize?
Sure.
First one on my list, or first one I noticed, David Guzman, badass defensive midfielder for Portland Timbers. He is on this roster.
He is indeed.
All right.
Calvo, the center back, also on this roster.
From Minnesota.
And I think is probably going to be the one who starts and probably anchors it, because it seems like Kendall Waston, for example, not included. Gonzalez not included. So
Calvo's got the most caps in the back line.
Of this squad? Yeah, for sure.
Waylon Francis and Joseph Mora. If you're a Seattle or DC United fan, you'll recognize those fullback names. Waylon Francis also was a player for a long time under Berhalter in Columbus.
Yeah, and then maybe some of the lesser known, unless you have more well known ones.
I have one that's not well known, but maybe we should keep an eye
on. Is it Cruz or McDonald?
It's Alan Cruz.
There it is.
Yes.
Yep.
So all I know about Alan Cruz, I haven't seen footage. I've just heard that he is a young playmaker, 22 years old. Just joined FC Cincinnati. So if you're a Cincinnati fan, obviously keep an eye on him. But the reputation I've got from what I've read is that he's someone who could cause the US some trouble with his playmaking ability. So that will at least be a player to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and Brian Ruiz, who's been around, I believe, since like 1874. He is currently playing for Santos, but has played for Fulham, has played in Greece, I think, as well, all over the place. He is still in this squad, but I think he ages... he's still in the Costa Rica squad. He was in that November November friendly, for example.
This squad.
No. So, sorry about that. But what I meant to say was, I think he's probably still in consideration for their A team. This is the team that we're playing World Cup qualifiers with. But it sounds like Cruz is the one who's kind of expected to shift into that role that we've seen Ruiz of dropping in, but then kind of linking attack and being the creative midfielder that can launch counterattacks.
So imagine this game for Alan Cruz. This is like, can you be the new Brian Ruiz under the new head coach?
Yeah. I mean, I think so too. And then the forward McDonald. I don't have his first name written down. I apologize.
Ronald? It's not, is it?
I missed you. No, it is. It's Ronald. It's not. It's Ronald McDonald, though, for me right now. He was partnering Joel Campbell in those November friendlies, and by all accounts impressed. And so I think this is probably his opportunity to show, hey, I can do it without these players around me, and I can do it consistently. So I think, not to say, it's a cliche to say, they're going to be up for it. They're going to be well organized and motivated. No team in history hasn't been well organized and motivated, or at least claimed to be. So I feel like there'll be all those things, but you will have those players like Cruz and McDonald who I think are going to be extra hungry to cement their status as first teamers.
And do we expect, even with the new coach and new players, do we expect the classic Costa Rica 5-4-1 defensive shape, really hard to break down because they're covering the back five, then the midfield four are causing you trouble, and then it transitions into a 3-4-3 going forward?
That would be my guess.
We're not basing that on much good information about what Matosas likes to do, but it seems to be almost Costa Rica's DNA, right, to play this way now because it's been so successful for so long. I think, honestly, they'd be crazy not to.
Yeah. I will be curious just to see who does what, because they did come out in a 3-5-2 in those friendlies in November. So do they actually have two up top, or is it going to be maybe McDonald by himself and then somebody else dropping in, or is McDonald dropping in?
Sometimes in the past it was listed as a 3-5-2, but it was really like, say, Urena was the actual striker,
3-6-1.
But then Brian Ruiz would actually be part of a midfield four. Right? Yeah, so we shall see. The one thing I think is worth noting is, which goes to the essence of the question, this team is going to be better than Panama's C team, right?
Yeah.
Not just because the level of Costa Rican player is higher than the level of Panamanian player, but also just because the defensive block they're going to have, I imagine, is going to be a lot harder to break down. This is a bigger test for Greg Berhalter's positional play. Can we move the ball around? Can we find pockets of space? Can we open them up?
I'm going to do some weird, complicated math that makes sense to me, but maybe isn't that complicated. But I'll say this. If you look at the U.S. team against Panama, we had this question, like, how many of these players actually are in that starting 11 if we're doing our best starting 11, which you and I are going to do in a little bit. And I would say maybe 2, maybe 3, not that many. And I guess I say that just to say that, as I said, in those November friendlies for Costa Rica, 5 of these guys were playing. And they didn't change. I think the only thing they changed was who was their right wing back. Outside of that, they played the same 11 for 2 games. 5 of those guys were in there. So it does feel like even if this is their B team, it feels like it's their B team versus like our B- team.
Yeah.
So getting a result and playing well against them, I think it is still a strong opponent that we should be like not overlooking and not dismissing if the United States looks just as good as they did against Panama.
And to get a little bit tactical about it then, if you think of Panama tried the 4-5-1 basically, 4-5-1 and then long balls to attack, they tried to stay narrow, right? And what we did to Panama is we had Ebobisse way, way wide, Corey Baird way, way wide. So they had to get stretched out a little bit, right? And then we had Lima and Bradley in the middle, and then Roldan and Mihailovic finding all kinds of space. Zardes occupying the strikers. And you kept seeing like Bradley could fake like he was going wide. Gaps would open up as they tried to cover that. And then you could find Roldan running underneath between the lines, right? That's because Panama tried that 4-5-1 and weren't that good at it. If Costa Rica have a 5-4-1, just imagine the stacks of players that you're up against, and they're better at it. It's suddenly a much, much bigger challenge. We could have that same thing with players wide and roll down trying to find space underneath. The space might not be there. It might be David Guzman knocking him over.
I don't know if you meant to do this, but Tyler Bartles, does Greg Berhalter adjust his tactics to Costa Rica, use this as a chance to try a different tactic, or continue repetition with the same tactics he used against Panama? So I feel like we've kind of moved into that one. Let's get to it. And basically, let's continue what you were saying. Because I think that you're right. It could be like, oh, now they're really bunkered and they know how to do it.
Or at least they're good at it,
But then we could also see, like, because I do kind of hope Greg Berhalter more or less sticks with the same thing, because I would like to see how it functions against a better opponent, but also if we're capable of replicating it, and then if he has to adjust it, how he adjusts it in game. But I also think you could have those interesting wrinkles, because if Costa Rica, if Costa Rica do try to counterattack, I didn't do that one on purpose, but I will do the next one on purpose, I guarantee you.
Is there a synonym for wrinkles?
Well, I'm sure somebody will message us, but in the moment I can't really think of one because I'm still holding half a thought in my brain, which is that if they do try to counter, and if you did have, like, I'm not saying Obobase will start again, but if he did, now that wingback has left a person standing wide in a massive amount of space. And so my question then is, like, does that pin them back effectively, and then suddenly are they even more defensive than they want to be, and are they completely incapable of countering, for example?
Here's my guess at what Greg Berhalter's going to do based on zero information and just me watching the games twice and okay, I think we'll see the same basic, what I would call a 4-3-3, right? With maybe Bradley or Trapp sitting deep and 2 8/10s ahead of him running, a centre forward ahead of that, and then 2 wide forwards ahead of that. We might not see the fullbacks going into midfield, because I think that could potentially open up space for Costa Rica to counter-attack, which just traditionally Costa Rica are much, much better at counter-attacking than Panama had been. Panama didn't pose a threat. That's why we could just go to that back 3. And also we may need more numbers forward, which may mean because the thing of what we did with Lima and Lovitz is they ended up not going forward, right? So we may end up with the more, what you think of as the traditional Berhalter thing of overlapping fullbacks getting way, way up the wing. So it might look similar-ish, and definitely the thing of moving the ball around quickly and trying to open up space will be the same, because that's the absolute basis of Berhalter, right? But maybe the one change that he might do is not do the false fullback thing. He'll just go for more width.
All right. Yeah. Any other differentiations or variables?
I mean, there could be some different players, right? There could be some different players start. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that a little
whenever you
later.
want to.
All right, because we have a question from Deuce, and Deuce wants to know: in light of Nick Lima playing as a right back / defensive midfield hybrid, what other unexpected tactical wrinkles do you think would be interesting to see from Berhalter on Sunday? I feel like both of us know which questions are coming, so we're accidentally answering them ahead without looking. We're too good at our jobs.
I mean, except to say that I'm about to be real cynical, because I feel like the original draft of this question was, what other unexpected tactical wrinkles do you expect to see? Like you can't have unexpected and expect in the exact same sentence.
They'll be unexpected. We won't know them until we see them.
Yes. But I think that, like, this is maybe a cop-out answer, but it's my genuine answer, is that, like, newness and the newness and uncertainty of this team makes everything sort of unexpected to me. Like, for example, I think you could ask 100 people hundreds of U.S. soccer fans, will Giassi Zardes start this game? Mm-hmm. And I think you would get very mixed answers. And that right there to me. So then Giassi Zardes starting the game is potentially unexpected. Giassi Zardes not starting the game is potentially unexpected. Yeah. And I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't really have a prediction for what he'll do. Yeah. I personally would like to see Giassi Zardes start, but I could see other variations. And I guess that's where I say it could all be unexpected to me.
In terms of player personnel, I've seen Berhalter say before the Panama game and after the Panama game that essentially we're not going to be chopping and changing. I've worked in this camp for however many weeks, and we've established our style of play, and I've picked the players that I think are best suited to implement it. He said after the game that we'll mix. Here's a direct quote: "We'll mix in guys where appropriate." I think our job is to continue to fine tune and continue to work on and develop our style of play. We may make some changes. We'll see where everyone is physically. So there could be just someone's tired. Right? It could be as simple as that. Christian Roldan might be knackered, and then he doesn't play for that reason.
This is a distinct possibility. And and then the thing that I kind of went back to is chopping and changing to me means playing.
That's not a direct quote. That's me paraphrasing.
Yeah, but it's still it would be playing players who haven't got any minutes or haven't gotten looks in camp. And so there's also a chance that we do see 3 players start who didn't start before. Yeah. It's just that those players were substitutes in that game. So even then, I think
Sebastian Lletget might be a guy that we see get a start. Maybe Paul Arriola will start on the right instead of Corey Baird. I think there's a lot of questions like that, especially with guys that entered the game. Right? Lletget replaced Roldan and Arriola replaced Baird.
Yeah. And I say this knowing that decent chance I'm wrong, but I think going into these games I would have said, I want to. I think I did say I want to see Austin Trusty and Mark McKenzie start the second game because I want to see how that partnership goes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to see that anymore.
And I think that's specifically that's not how Berhalter's doing it. I think it's a good way for us to think about it. He's not handing out debuts. He's not getting players experience. Right. This isn't 2018 anymore. This is about fine tuning, as he said, working on the style of play, and so little tweaks to the starting 11, maybe little tweaks to exactly what the tactical setup is. But I think the basis of what we saw against Panama, the chassis, is going to be the same. We just might build a few different things.
And for American listeners, that would be a chassis. And I would say. Sorry, I was going to say one good,
I got one more thing as well, but you go first.
I was going to say one example. I would say that maybe again this is going too deep, giving too much credit, but I feel the way he handled Zach Steffen and Sean Johnson again indicates his approach, which it wasn't. You each get a half. We're going to split halves. It was sort of no, our starter is going to play until I substitute him out and give Sean Johnson a few minutes.
Yeah,
and so to me, again, that was an indication of I'm not just giving people minutes because they're in camp. I'm giving people minutes because they earn those minutes and fit what we're doing.
I think another one we're thinking about is Reggie Cannon.
Yeah.
Because Greg Berhalter has praised Reggie Cannon's performance in camp. It just seems that there's only one right back spot, and Nick Lima has outperformed him. And I did want us to stop for a second and just talk about Nick Lima, because I think both George and I and you and Joe, we both talked a lot about Nick Lima's tactical role because that was the one variation. But we didn't really talk about his performance. And when I was rewatching it, there were lots of little things from Nick Lima that I was really excited about. I mean, not least the fact that it's him that charges forward out of midfield to really start the beginning of the end of the move that leads to the first goal. It's him that has that Wayne Rooney moment where he does the tackle, then cross for Walker Zimmerman. And he just looks so clean and crisp on the ball and so good defensively. There's a chance he's played his way into I am the right back.
Yeah.
I'm the right back now.
I mean,
he was players coach of the match.
I mean,
coach's player of the match.
There's a chance. I think you said this on air that if DeAndre Edlin stayed up late and watched it, maybe he's a little bit more nervous. Maybe Nick Lima gave him a wrinkle from being so concerned.
Edlin's too young for wrinkles.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to work real hard to get that one
in. So the other guys, maybe Russell Knaus, you could see gets himself into that midfield three.
Now we've reached the point in the show when we're listing the players we haven't mentioned yet because we feel like we need to, but also because we want Russell Knaus.
No, but Knaus is a guy. I don't know if it's just because we have some DC affiliation because they're our nearest MLS team. I'd say you're a fan. I'm more of an observer.
I think I would refer to myself as a nominal fan.
A nominal fan, but I look at the way the midfield shape is, and it's one sitting, Bradley, and 2 runners ahead, right? Roldan and Mihailovic to start. I don't know where Roldan fits into that. He would have to be the Bradley role, but I don't know that he has the same passing range. I would quite like to see him given a chance in the starting 11, but then Will Trapp has been skipped over, right? So I don't, or maybe there's a chance that we see, again, everything's going to look similar because positional play, move the ball around, try and unsettle the opposition, try and overload various areas to try and create opportunities. But that also could mean 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
And maybe we see Bradley and Knaus sitting next to each other and just just Roldan or just Leggett ahead of them. Like, these are all possibilities of things that will only look slightly different, and they'll be designed just to try and get at Costa Rica where we can get at them. And this is important, Berhalter talks a lot about also making sure to be conservative enough, giving enough of a backup so we don't get exploited on the counter.
Yeah. And so I think with all of that said,
I said a lot.
My conclusion to all this would be like similar. It's kind of where it was when I started off. Is just that like anybody who says this is definitely what they're going to be doing is either Greg Berhalter or lying. Like that's it. That's kind of where it is.
Or maybe Josh Wolf.
Maybe Josh Wolf. Maybe. I don't know how close they are when it comes to like totally conveying all the tactics. Probably pretty close. But I just think that there could be any number of things that happen, and I'm not going to be super, super excited about anything, but I'm also not going to be like, oh, that's a terrible idea. I'm happy to see all things play out.
One final question we have that relates specifically to the starting 11 against Costa Rica. Kenneth Pavlov asked, does Ramirez deserve to start versus Costa Rica?
Best quote of the wire.
Deserve ain't got nothing to do with it.
There you go. Delivered by Snoop. Thanks, Snoop. Deserve got nothing to do with it. I mean, that is genuinely how I feel. It's about basically if he gives Berhalter the look he wants or fits with what they're trying to do on this occasion, maybe it's that. Maybe that's really what he's been looking for in a striker all this time. Then I think, sure, start him. But I don't think that like scoring a goal, as I said, like justifies automatically starting against a different opponent. It comes down to what Greg Berhalter wants, and that's where I said earlier, it's nothing against Christian Ramirez. It's just that I would like to see Jalci Zardes given another opportunity. I think we've talked about this in games past, in friendlies past. It's like I shouldn't say especially into the Saracen era because it's just what happens, but that's what was most recent, is that it was always like Bobby Wood is the one who starts the first game, and he always does all the running, but the first game is the one where we're like more defensive and more conservative, and so he's kind of in this thankless position, and then he doesn't get to play the second game against like maybe the weaker opponent or when we figured some stuff out, and so he always
Josh Sargent's time to shine.
Exactly, and so he always looks worse, and I would like to see Jalci Zardes given another start to see if maybe some of those nerves are gone now, and he's kind of a little bit calmer and knows a little bit more what's expected and executes that much better.
Well, here's the thing is, I think he did execute everything except the finishing.
There you go.
And I think when I rewatched, I saw a lot of Jalci Zardes like flick-ons, coming in like one-time quick touch balls. You and Joe talked a lot about the runs he made that distracted opposition. I actually think if Costa Rica have a good defensive setup, Jalci Zardes' running and disruption could be even more important. And obviously the thing that's going to stick out in people's head is the missed header. And then was the one where we had like a volley. There was actually quite a nice strike, saved, came back to him, and he smashed it over the stadium.
He had a couple volleys that he smashed over or wide.
So obviously those stick out in people's heads, but the work he did, I think, will be appreciated by the coach. At the same time, there's an element of Berhalter maybe knows Zardes so well that he can probably say to Zardes, we're going to give Ramirez this one. I don't think Zardes will be will be heartbroken because I think he trusts the coach so much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about genuinely, I'm not worried about Zardes' feelings. But the difference to me would be that he knows Zardes from playing for Columbus with, say, Higuain behind him. He doesn't have Higuain behind him anymore. So, like, it's still a new setup,
even better.
A new system. But there's a chance that maybe he knows Zardes, but after this game, he's like, oh, yeah, I know Zardes, and he's not going to be able to step up. So I guess that's why I still go to, I would like to see him given a chance just to see what he can bring with a second game in him. But I would also end with this, at least at this point for me, which is that like I think Greg Berhalter, more than any U.S. coach we've had since maybe Bob Bradley and like the early days of Bob Bradley, I would say like Ebobisse. I think there are people out there who think like, oh, he had a bad game. Yeah, he got injured, but like we didn't see very much of him. He was pretty anonymous. But I think there's a very decent chance that he did exactly what Greg Berhalter asked him to do, which is like stay wide. It's going to be frustrating. You're not going to get that ball that often, but you're going to be pulling people out of position.
Yep.
That's all I need from you.
And just to underline that, it's so important. The space that Mihailovic and Roldan found, that space is created by Ebobisse wide left, Baird wide right. Just imagine it as like Panama being pulled left and right. That creates that more space for the attacking midfielders to run into.
Yep.
This is the Greg Berhalter system. It's exciting to watch, but it's worth knowing what you're watching.
Because I think there will be people who, if Ebobisse keeps doing that, but the United States keeps winning, it will be that, like, why is he starting? We've got such better left-wing options. We've got to get him in there. Like, what is he thinking? And it's like, well, he's thinking that it's working.
And you know what? If Deserves had got anything to do with it, I would say Ebobisse, who is a centre-forward, deserves to start at centre-forward after doing a shift on the left wing. But international soccer doesn't necessarily work like that. And I also think, cut his head open, it looked pretty bad, right? I think the smart thing in pre-season would be to actually tell Ebobisse, maybe you don't need to play again with a cut head.
Yeah, for half a second, I thought you were like prescribing that. Like, cut his head open, see what's going on in there.
No. I'm saying
right.
maybe he doesn't need to play with that specific injury.
So you're not advocating radical brain surgery.
Here's the other thing. So Christian Ramirez does deserve to play again because he scored. If Zardes starts, Christian Ramirez could still get half an hour.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's still a valuable half an hour to Christian Ramirez.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you 100%.
All right. Gavel, gavel, gavel.
Gavel, gavel, gavel. Rabble, rabble, rabble.
Before we get to the rest of the questions.
Yep.
Before we get to the rest of the questions, would you like to do today's other ad, Taylor?
I would love to. Today's show is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf providers to U.S. Soccer, Major League Soccer, USL, and the NCAA. So if you're feeling positive about the U.S. men's national team, which is a strange thing to say.
I mean, it's January. Mm-hmm. It's cold. It's record cold in the Midwest. If you're feeling good about the US all of a sudden, there is no better time to buy a US scarf through Roughneck Scarves. They have all kinds of US men's national team scarves.
I'm going to guess folks in the Midwest are fully aware of the usefulness of a scarf, but if they've just held off getting a US national team one, now you can do that. Or a US women's national team one.
It's not a solution to what's happening in the Midwest.
Not so much. But we did ask on Twitter if you were to design a Roughneck scarf to represent the USMNT's first game under Greg Berhalter, the US national team's first game under Greg Berhalter, what would it look like?
Critter says it would look like the design would be Greg Berhalter ripping open Pandora's box, which is a scary thing, and pulling out hope.
Why is it going to be ripped open?
I don't know.
It can't just be like gently opened?
No, I mean, it took him 3 weeks to open it.
Okay. Josh Lister simply says triangles.
Which is true. I saw a lot of passing triangles. Mm-hmm. Again, US moved the ball in a way I have not seen them move it in a good
I'd buy that
while.
Scarf.
Yeah.
A lot of interlocking triangles. That could be cool.
Beelzebul says it would be Michael Bradley sitting on a throne above all of his haters and the other side being Lima and Berhalter kicking Yedlin out.
I'm not sure.
Can we stop on this? We both mentioned that maybe Yedlin would struggle with that Nick Lima position. At the same time this weekend, Yedlin, I haven't seen it, but apparently DeAndre Yedlin handled Leroy Sana in a game. Mm-hmm. He will have something to offer Greg Berhalter.
He is our starting right back.
He is
we're going to get to that later, but when we do our theoretical starting 11s, he is the right back for now.
Sorry, I felt compelled to.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Especially because I feel like I've been a Yedlin doubter in the past.
Yeah, you hate him.
And I feel like I might have gone too far, and now too many people have joined me.
Yeah,
off the bandwagon. Get off the bandwagon.
You personally dislike him. I got it. That's not true. Real Grant Clark, as opposed to fake Grant Clark.
Yeah.
A blanket-sized scarf with a face morph of Greg Berhalter and Pep Guardiola.
Because of the false fullback thing?
And the shaved head thing. Maybe
it
fits that well too. Yeah.
At least Berhalter knows proper coats. Stephen J. Camargo says his scarf would have...
One of them has lived in Columbus.
Berhalter on one side with X's and O's and Ernie Stewart trying to turn Pulisic's attention away from Chelsea and to the Gold Cup on the other side.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I would like to see the visual representation.
It's a FIFA tournament. You can call him up.
I would like to see the visual representation of that and not have it look like Ernie Stewart is trying to break Christian Pulisic's neck.
Just trying to swivel his head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So those scarves maybe aren't on offer, but as we said, Roughneck Scarves is the official scarf provider of U.S. Soccer, MLS, USL, NCAA. So many scarf options out there. And if you would like to get a scarf at 20% off, you can do so by going to roughneckscarves.com and using what promo code, my friend?
Total Soccer Show, all one word.
Thank you,
Total Soccer
I
Show.
Forgot.
You never did. Did I not put it in the document?
There's just no, I don't think so. It's not in there. We have 3 or 4 different ones. It's the same thing with all of my passwords. I have 4 passwords.
Yeah. What are they?
I've said too much. And so it's just a matter of trying them until I get the right one.
Oh,
it doesn't quite work here.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the next set of questions are slightly moving away from Costa Rica,
sure.
which I think is good because we've previewed that, and looking more big picture. Okay, next question is from Togaman, which is a great name. Togaman asks, how often does a national team coach communicate with players?
Yep.
Especially, can Greg Berhalter teach his system to the European-based players that are not at this camp? It's a really good question.
It is. I did some Googling. I couldn't find much about
Berhalter talked about it, right?
Apparently. I didn't know that.
Okay. I did.
But I couldn't find anything really. I didn't know if there were any actual written down laws about it. So I texted Alexi Lalas because I was curious. He has a national team experience. He said, so back in my day, it didn't happen a lot. It didn't happen a lot because we didn't have the technology that now exists. With that new technology comes the ability to efficiently communicate on a consistent basis with players around the world. As a matter of fact, Greg has talked talked very publicly about the need for continuous communication with the players. And
I feel like Alexei just could have sent you back and let me Google that for you.
Well, here's the thing that I think was particularly interesting. All of that is to say that playing for the national team is much less of a sporadic type of endeavor in 2019 than it has been before. This is all still Mr.
Because of
Wallace.
electronic communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think this type of ongoing communication and education is essential for a team like the United States in trying to make up ground and compete with other national teams that are better. I think a big question will be what form of the communication takes and how that communication relates to a player who may be playing out of position or playing a different style with his club team and therefore has to adjust if he hopes to fit in with the national team.
Yeah.
So that will be the kind of – so it sounds like it will be pretty consistent, if not continuous, communication.
Yeah.
But then it's a matter of like how do you communicate? How do you do so without hurting the players standing with the club or hurting their confidence or just like hurting their overall game by making them think things they wouldn't otherwise be thinking.
And here's my guess as well, is having these games, the Panama game and hopefully the Costa Rica game goes relatively well, then you could send you could get 15-second clips, send those to players who would be playing the position that someone else is playing, if that makes sense. Like you could send maybe, I talked about maybe McKennie playing the roll down role, right? Greg Berhalter could cut out some clips, put them in an email with some explanation of what's going on and send those to Weston McKennie and say, this is the type of thing that we're looking for. Here was the trigger for him to do that. Here's why this worked. Same thing with Nick Lima, DeAndre Yedlin. You could send to DeAndre Yedlin, hey, here's what Nick Lima did. This is, you know what I'm saying? It's very possible to do that stuff. It's not the same as being in camp and all working on it together as a team, but it's possible to do some communication.
It is, but see, I'm not sure how much I like that, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm speaking as a human here, not as a national team player. Can't really speak with experience on that one, but I will say that like there are times when you text me something and I just like I don't see it or I forget I've seen it or I'm like, oh, I'll get to that later, and then I haven't seen it, and then when we come in to record the show, if you're like, oh, did you see that clip? And I'm like, oh no, sorry, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
But now imagine you're the head coach of the national team and I'm a player, and you're like, hey, did you see that clip? And I'm like, oh no, sorry. Like that makes me look bad. But we're talking about
most people are better at checking their email than you.
You know who probably isn't? 20-year-old professional soccer players. And I think with that, like that is an important point to me, is that like if Weston McKennie is out being a 20-year-old professional athlete or whatever, like I don't know if they're always going to have their mind on the national team. And frankly, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. And so you have to kind of weigh that in there.
I think it's realistic to expect that they'll have it's not like they're getting 3 messages a day, right? If it's just one clip that's sent,
hope not.
Let's assume that it's it'd be like crazy stalking, right? But let's assume that it's just a reasonable amount.
It's like Urban Meyer style. I know that doesn't resonate, but somebody out there laughed at that.
If it's just a reasonable amount of information, like once every couple weeks, for say Weston McKennie to think about and digest, I'm going to assume he's enthusiastic enough about playing for the national team that he's going to take the time to watch and digest this clip. And also, soccer players have a lot of spare time. They play a lot of FIFA and stuff like that. So I don't think it's too much to ask, especially if they're getting amped for the amped to get called in March.
I am not like much younger than you, but I do feel like there is a little bit of a difference there of like, your life is very focused on like if we're not doing this, you're doing copy editing. You're like you tend to be on your computer, and I feel like for a younger person, if they're in the middle of a FIFA game and like a message comes through, like oh yeah, I'll get to that later, and then maybe they don't. And so
Greg Berhalter?
See, and this
Come
is where
on.
I mean I think if you got a lot going on, I think that can be an issue. That's where I have to imagine that it's not quite so on the fly. My hope would be that Greg Berhalter strikes me as a very organized person, and my hope would be that it's more of a like, hey, I'm sending you like a report. Yeah. And it's less of like, hey, make sure you watch this clip, because the other frustrating aspect of that would be like, hey, watch this clip. Look what this guy does. Like, okay, like it has to be more like specific
we don't know.
instruction.
I mean, we'd love to see some of that, right? It'd be
Yeah,
nice
we
to see
would.
what's in there.
But I guess what I mean to say is like that's not useful to a player to just be told like, hey, look at this great run he made. It's like, okay, cool. Like I can do that, but then what about this?
Hey, you're going to be called up in March for the friendlies. Here's one thing I'm going to be asking you to do in March. Here's what you can watch to prepare.
But see, that's what I mean.
So maybe I phrased it poorly to begin with to give the idea that Berhalter was sending these terrible video messages. I think it'll be very prepared in a way that's building towards something like, here's information you need for when I see you in March.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is like we're saying the same thing. We're just coming at it from different angles. But what I'm realizing is like he's probably not sending him a bunch of GIFs of players doing stuff. He's sending them like an actual detailed report.
He's not Adam Bell.
Here's what's expected of you. You never know. I've never seen them in the same place at the same time. So it's probably more so a detailed report that they're then asked to like kind of read through or be ready for, or at least just a detailed breakdown of something. So it's not just like, hey, did you watch that clip? Like, yeah.
I think it'll be more detailed. Then also on top of this, here's a thing I've been thinking of. Greg Berhalter's had, 3 weeks in camp to get this team playing this style. The benefits of that is that there's evidence now that people can watch the game, right? I'm assuming all these players will at least watch the January game. There'll be some carryover from this camp to, say, the March camp. But then you've got, McKennie, Adams, Pulisic, all these guys coming in. I've got this weird feeling that like it might look a little rougher in March because there'll be less prep time. But almost March should be laying the groundwork for the big event, which is this summer is the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
And for the Gold Cup, you will have a week or two in camp before the tournament starts. So maybe this weird thing where the style of play looks smooth in January because weaker opposition, long prep time, rougher in March because tougher opposition, short prep time. But it's all just groundwork for the summer, the Gold Cup, where the full thing is unleashed. I've never been so excited for a Gold Cup.
That's good. All right. Well, so it sounds like you're pretty excited about the national team as a whole then.
Yeah.
Which maybe helps you prepare for this question from Matt Leffler.
Yeah.
How good do you guys think this version of the U.S. men's national team will be? It seems like there are more players with fewer shortcomings than in the past. Could this national team actually end up top 10 or 15 in the world?
Yes. I think this team, I think the US has been touching that before. We've had a rough few years. But right now, this is based on me extrapolating a lot of good things from one positive performance. But we have what you and I have always asked for, a coach with a tactical plan who's capable of explaining what he wants each player to do in their role, right? Which is really exciting.
It's also, I just want to clarify, that is how you get out of or get into the next round of a knockout competition.
Yes.
You have a specific game plan that your players are capable of executing. If you don't have a game plan, it's how you get knocked out when you are Spain.
Yep. And then you couple that with the wave of talent that is about to hit, right? We haven't even fully experienced the Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams generation of players, right? And then coming up just behind them, there's the Alex Mendez, Sergino Dest era of players. And you've got George Bello coming up behind them. And you've also got Josh Sargent and Tim Weah in the mix. There's a lot of exciting talent coming through, coupled with a coach that has a clear plan and will tell players how to do it. I'm not saying we're going to win the World Cup, but I think the US will go back to being a competitive team and maybe even a team that's exciting to watch in terms of moving the ball around, right?
It's such a sad maybe.
Yeah, but it's aesthetically pleasing to watch.
No, I'm with you. No, I just mean it's and maybe even they won't be so not fun to
No, but
watch.
Mostly you have to be a big nation to play attractive football. Right, so it's to be.
Belgium would like a word with you.
Well, but you get what I'm saying. To have not one of the big boys committed to playing attractive football is, I think, a big deal.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this. I don't mean to be whatever, but I would say I don't really necessarily care about top 15. I care about top 16. Because if everybody...
As in round off?
Exactly. I want this to be a team...
we should sell for top 32 right now.
Yeah, we really should. But I would say top 16, I don't really care about FIFA rankings. They're so weird and all over the place, and Switzerland and Poland being in there, whatever. I would say, is this a team that if everybody clicks and comes together can make it to that round of 16? I think it is. I think it is for 2022. Grain of salt, let's qualify first, but it does feel like, for all the reasons you suggested, that's where I'm looking at is, and really... You always get one of the top 15 or two of them knocked out anyway. So you really just got to be top 18 in the world. That's all we got to be.
Next question. Jesus Sendejas. Do you think Berhalter is going to want to use a full squad for the Gold Cup or just use a younger squad with veterans like Bradley and Altidore mixed in?
What's the difference?
I don't know. I think, actually the key to this is the full squad. If you pick a full squad right now, it includes Christian Pulisic, who is 19, 20. He's 20, right?
Yeah.
It includes Tyler Adams. It includes Weston McKennie. The full squad is the young squad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would say this, I think we, no disrespect to Jesus, but I think we need to get away from this type of thinking because I think it's similar to how coaches don't like formations. They don't like being labeled, this is what formation we're doing because that removes all the nuance and the kind of fluidity of it all. I feel like this is the same thing. I think we pundits people who are fans, whatever, they like it's a young team. Oh, it's a veteran team. Oh, it's a combination of the two. Oh, it's American-based. Oh, it's European. Like, it makes it just easier to classify and categorize. But I think that doesn't really help you understand who's in the team. And so in my mind, it just needs to be about, we need to put out the strongest team if the situation requires it. If we are in a situation where, like, the Olympics are happening and the U20 or like the U20 World Cup are happening at the same time, or we've got another competition to prepare for.
Then you've got to do some splitsies.
Yeah, if we're doing like you've got to send one team to Gold Cup, one team to Copa America, if ever that happens. Like, those are the things where maybe that's
never happening again because of the way they're switching Copa America to even numbered years.
So there you go. Yeah. So I really think what it should come down to is just like the players that we are excited to see and the players that Greg Berhalter usually goes for, but to be like, there's not enough 18-year-olds in here, so I don't like this team anymore.
I don't think that's a problem we're going to have, given the level of 18, 19, 20-year-old talent that's coming on up. And to the question about what Berhalter will want to do, he'll want to win the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
It's his first Gold Cup. He'll want to blow the lights out with impressive performances and get that trophy and stand there and hold that trophy above his shaved head.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, and like, this doesn't really connect, but it does to me, is that like it's part of the reason why you want a coach. It can be a little bit controversial, but it's why you want a coach.
For a whole year, we wanted a coach.
We did. But it's why you want an American to coach the United States. It's why you want an Englishman to coach England. They know that pain. Gareth Southgate is familiar with everything that has happened to England in the last 20, 30 years, whatever.
He was a key part of a big part of
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but they carry that with them. There's no way that Greg Berhalter doesn't want to win the Gold Cup, to your point, because he wants to prove to the American soccer supporting public, look, we're back, things are righted, the ship is righted. If Jose Mourinho, as an example, were brought in, does he care about the Gold Cup? I don't know. Does he care about everything that's happened recently? I don't know. It probably just makes him look better that now they're winning. But to have Greg Berhalter there, who played for the national team and lived through it as a fan of the national team, I think that definitely, in my mind, sells the idea that he is going to want to win that Gold Cup.
All right, so looking ahead to the Gold Cup, where we might be picking our strongest possible team, we have a question from Chris Wellhausen. I don't know Chris's religion. Chris says, if all players are available, who's Greg likely picking for his starting 11? Yeah. Who should he pick to best execute this style of play?
I found this tougher to answer than I thought it would be. And I don't think it's just because of the tactical changes we saw against Panama.
Yeah. I found it weirdly easy. I think maybe I just didn't put enough thought into it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, I look forward to hearing yours then. What you got?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to say a 4-3-3. Zach Steffen in goal.
Yep.
Yedlin at right back.
Yep.
Miazga and Brooks are still, I think, are the presumptive pair of
I've got a question mark
backs.
where Miazga used to be.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Anthony Robinson left back. Michael Bradley at the number 6.
Anthony Robinson returning to training, by the way, which is probably why we both have him there, because I have him there too.
Michael Bradley sitting at the number 6. Adams and McKennie as 8/10s ahead of him.
I feel like we're going to be very similar until one of the names you're about to say.
Josmir Volmi Altidore as my centre forward, and then Pulisic and Tim Weah out wide.
Yep. I have got...
And there can be variations, right? Like, it could also be... Adams at defensive midfield. If there's no Bradley, Adams is the defensive midfielder, and Pulisic can come central, and it's Pulisic and McKennie as the 8/10s, and maybe some other winger. But I think roughly that. Yeah.
I had Bobby Wood instead of Josie Altidore just because it feels like things aren't great with Josie Altidore, and obviously not the best of seasons last year.
He's coming back from injury, right? So we'll find out in March. Basically.
Exactly. So I think
or sooner if he goes.
But right now, I'm less inclined to be like, yeah, I'm sure by the time the Gold Cup rolls around, everything's going to be great. I just feel like, and it's not as though Bobby Wood is tearing the roof off the Bundesliga or anything like that. It just seems like, and especially with this sort of the runs, Joe Lowry made a very good point about this, that like with the runs that it seems like Berhalter wants from Zardes, that seems like something Bobby Wood is more capable of doing.
Joe Lowry made an excellent point
to do,
that Tim Weah makes those runs a lot. I've watched a good bit of Tim Weah over the last couple of games that he's played. We talked about this a little bit on my Stomachache show.
Yep.
He does a lot of like peeling in behind, running around, darting here, darting there. He may be the ideal striker for Greg Berhalter. Maybe not by the time of the Gold Cup, but I think in the nearish future, it could be a really good fit.
It could be.
Then there's Josh Sargent as well, who also is very good at making those runs in behind. We could have a wealth of riches.
I think Timothy Weah is tailor-made to play that spot that Jeremy Ebobisse was in.
Yes,
I
agree with that too.
Because he is the type of player who can be anonymous for 80 minutes because he's been told to stay wide and stretch the defense, but in the 81st minute, he'll get that ball, he'll beat two people, and get a shot from the corner of the box that goes in. Like, I think you need that type of player who can just switch it on in the 1 minute that they actually have time and space to do something. That feels like a position for Timothy Weah. So that's why I had him on the left, Pulisic on the right. I had Bobby Wood in the middle. And it probably is Matt Miazga, but just given what's happened with his recall / like self-recall from France now with Reading, that's great. He's getting minutes, but it does feel like it opens up the door a little bit more to other center backs out there.
For Aaron Long or Walker Zimmerman. I mean, Aaron Long, it seems that the decision to make him captain was based on his performance in camp and his sort of general performance in terms of attitude and how he applied himself. There's a good chance it's a John Brooks-Aaron Long partnership, which I think would be two left-footers, which I would be oddly uncomfortable with. But
I have no such qualms. That is who I had starting.
Watching John Brooks play passes for Wolfsburg is thrilling. He really does move forward, move the ball through the lines in the same way that Zimmerman and Long, especially Zimmerman actually, managed to do against Panama. But again, it's against Panama. Imagine John Brooks bringing the ball out of the back and the full-strength US team is pulling players all out of position. I can see John Brooks finding all kinds of angles and finding those attacking midfielders, bypassing the defensive midfielders. It could be really exciting to watch that happen. And then I also think with something like DeAndre Yedlin, I still think he could not do the Nick Lima role, the false fullback role, but when there's a game where it's just overlapping fullbacks, I think Yedlin could do it. But then maybe it's Tyler Adams at right back doing the half midfield, half right back thing, if that's what's required. You can have Yedlin part of the squad, but not part of maybe the thing that doesn't suit him perfectly.
Obviously, we're going to go long in this show.
Oh, we knew that before we started.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But I think the reason why I've been so frustrated, one of the many reasons why I've been so frustrated with U.S. soccer is that
the organization.
It does. It just feels like this player pool. It's a big player pool, by the way, but it feels more exciting because there's so many knowns and then there's so many unknowns, and it felt like it could be an era where everything is really exciting. And now that we have a permanent coach who seems like he's going to approach every game with a plan, suddenly I'm looking at it as but there is that guy out there who's playing left back in the Bundesliga 2, or there's this guy in Scandinavia. It just feels like now those players that we were sort of I really want to see, but first can we figure out who is going to be calling these people in the first place? Now that that's sorted, it also just feels like I have the same 11 as you do roughly, but I have no idea how that's going to change in the next year because there is a lot of talent out there that could jump to that next level. And suddenly Shaq Moore is playing out of his mind.
Yeah, or Sergino Dest is the starting right back. Or Richie Ledesma lights it up in the Netherlands and suddenly he's competing for one of those attacking midfield spots. The future is really, really, really exciting.
It is. And I would also say that the past was exciting too, which is to say that there are other names out there that we haven't heard in a while. And if you're Greg Berhalter and you're starting over and you've got players out there, do you call in Timmy Chandler? I don't know, because he is a veteran Bundesliga player who could...
He's had some injury problems.
He is of the age where he could go to that 2022 World Cup. I'll say that much. So it does feel like maybe some of those other names that we haven't seen in a while, there's a chance we see them get called in, but there's also a chance...
Find out how much.
Going back to my earlier point, that Greg Berhalter...
Freddie Morales.
Well, I was just going to say that Greg Berhalter watched those games and maybe thought the same things that Jurgen Klinsmann and Bruce Arena did. Yeah. And maybe, again, that's
I think the reputation of Timmy Chandler is that he wasn't that thrilled about going away to CONCACAF. Yeah. And I think it wasn't a thing where he'd said to a couple of players, hey, your club is where your money's at. Make sure you take care of that. I think he's made himself a little bit unwelcome.
Yeah, he was younger. It's fine.
With comments like that. But yeah, you're right. We don't know what else is out there, and it is exciting. We've got 2 more questions.
We do.
Are you ready? I hope you're still listening. So we have a question from Brendan Massa. Brendan Massa says, I'm currently watching the US play at home in an all-blue kit. So this was Sunday's game, I guess. It's always bothered me that the US national teams don't have a settled home kit colour. In your opinions, why is that? Is it for marketing / kit sales? Does that say anything about US soccer's commitment to chasing the dollar over establishing a tradition / visual identity?
The United States women's national team wore green socks, and that's all you need to know to answer that question. That is my answer.
I have an answer. I think, so Brendan is looking at other teams like England always wear white, or Spain always wear red, Netherlands orange, Brazil yellow, right? All those traditions were kind of established in the era of 1950 to 1990. And I think what happened with the US was the team was so sort of low profile and no one was paying attention to it that we don't have a famous era of this is the jerseys that we wear, right? So Brazil had that thing where they lost the World Cup in 1950 wearing blue, and to refresh, they started wearing that canary yellow, and then they were really good. And then so they're always going to stick with canary yellow. The US just didn't have that period where a certain primary colour got established. So I don't think it's about marketing, because even the teams, England have all white. They just release a new all white kit every year or two and make money that way.
And
right?
it's
So it's not,
boring.
and it's boring. Yeah, it's not about making money. I actually like that the US has a variety of designs on the red, white, and blue.
But I would disagree with one thing. It is, in my mind, 100% about making money.
Yeah, but no less so than it is for the English FA or the Dutch Federation.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, Nike's not shelling out millions and millions of dollars to be the official jersey provider to not make money off of those jerseys. Of course. So I mean, it's about money. But I'm with you that like. I think like it's not boring, it's iconic, I know, but like I look forward to whatever jersey's coming next. Maybe it's like the bomb pop one, or maybe it's like the stripey one, or maybe there's a sash, maybe it's a different home jersey. But like
we get to do that, other teams don't.
Exactly. I just feel like it's another white, proudly Umbro jersey. Cool, got it, awesome.
England's Nike now. Nike
doesn't matter. They're always Umbro.
My favourite thing with US kits is how everybody hates it when it comes out, and then everybody likes it a few months later.
It's almost like we're all cynical hipsters. Yeah, exactly. That's how it works.
Final question.
I wonder I guess Nigeria. Nigeria is the answer. Never mind. I was going to say, I wonder what's the jersey that we were just all like, yep, that's it. That's awesome.
Final question on today's show. This was a listener question via email. Mark Mickelson wants to know, who will be the World Cup veterans on our 2022 World Cup roster, assuming, of course, we make it? With a gap cycle, this will be an unusually low number in US soccer's modern history.
Correct. I looked at the 2014 World Cup squad. I did the math of like the players that are in the range where they could still theoretically be selected. You've got 7 players who fit that age. And if you really like forced me to answer this question, I would say John Brooks. That is pretty much the only one that I would say for sure.
No DeAndre Yedlin?
We've got Yedlin at 29. Again, I have question marks there.
He could get overlapped.
Yeah, basically Brooks is the only one who I think it would take a massive downturn in form or a horrific injury to not be on this squad. Whereas with everybody else, I could see like Michael Bradley, he'll be 34. Maybe he's a little bit past it. Maybe somebody else kind of edges him out. Brad Guzan will be 38. Maybe he's still at that point where he can keep performing.
Like the third choice keeper.
But see, then you've got other young players coming through who could do it. I mean, the other ones would be, Yedlin will be 29, Bradley 34, Aaron Johansson will be 32, Brad Guzan 38, Julian Green 27, Josie Altidore.
Josie go? Oh yeah, Josie
Altidore 32,
20 minutes of the 2014
and Timmy Chandler 32.
How old will Josie be?
32. I think he will have just turned 32, I think. I think he turns like 32 in like November 6th, maybe, something like that.
That's not impossible. Yeah.
No.
Okay, so those are the possibilities.
Yeah, so I mean, who's
most likely?
John Brooks.
John Brooks,
and then DeAndre Yedlin, I think, are your 1 and 2. And then if Michael Bradley can stay fit and stay in Greg Berhalter's good graces, I think there's a decent chance he's in there too.
Yeah.
And Josie Altidore. There we go. So 4, which is very low in terms of World Cup experience.
So that's a lot of listener questions we just answered. It is worth noting that we've fallen behind on our $10 listener questions, partly because I missed some time because of hospitalization. So I just want to apologize to anyone who asked a question and it hasn't been answered yet. We will get to them eventually, we promise.
I apologize for nothing, nor should you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
We've got a few scouting reports to get to. That has also been backed up a little bit.
Yep.
We'll start with Richard Rolson scouting Ian Harkes, the 23-year-old. By the way, some of these are slightly out of date. 23-year-old American midfielder at Dundee United. Ian Harkes made his debut for Dundee United at Montrose in the 4th round of the Scottish Cup. Came on into the match with the Tangerines up 2-0 in the 70th minute. Played well, and in the 92nd minute scored his side's 4th goal of the match.
I've seen this from a weird angle. There's like a weird camera behind the goal.
Yep.
So I've seen it, but not really seen it.
So have you really seen it then?
I'm going to say no. Ted Tracy is scouting Rubio Rubin, 22-year-old American forward at Doradas de Sinaloa. In his first start with Doradas, Rubio scored a fabulous free kick goal in the 25th minute. Here's a name we haven't mentioned for the US national team. He could play that wide left role. Rubin took the free kick from the corner of the penalty area and sent a curling right-footed shot into the far top corner. Doradas went on to win 3-1.
Checking. Manager is still Diego Maradona. I meant to check that before we started recording. I cannot believe that that's the case. Zach Betcher scouting Timothy Weah, a 19-year-old American forward on loan at Celtic from PSG. Zach, with a great scouting report, 2 games, 2 goals.
He also then had a third game where I think he started, didn't score. Ollie Burke came on and scored. I remember talking to you.
Your facts.
I remember talking to you about how the real contest was going to be Tim Weah versus Ollie Burke, right?
I remember nothing.
And I heard Celtic fans not complaining, but basically making the comparison that they sometimes in the Scottish Premiership you need the muscle of Ollie Burke because Tim Ware's still kind of a skinny teenager. Right?
Yep.
Trevor Tauber scouting Griffin Yao, the 17-year-old American forward for DC United. Trevor says Yao has been brought into the first team for DC United's pre-season this week. He was featured in a DC United Instagram Live hosted by Bill Hamid and was shown performing fitness tests at Audi Field.
Get it, Griffin. Get on that Instagram. Daryl, I avoided making the haggis joke because I don't even know if people eat haggis. But what would be like the Scottish fare that Timothy Weah could eat to kind of bulk up a little bit?
Oh, fried Mars bars.
I'm not sure that's the bulk he's going for. It's not a lean protein, I guess.
An Iron Brew. Iron Brew is the soft drink. It's actually really tasty.
It's called Iron Brew.
Yeah, IRNBRU. Made the advertising tagline was "Made from girders in Scotland."
I feel like most
it's like Scottish industry.
That's the thing is, I feel like exactly it's that fist. It's Scotland. I feel like they're like a large part of their current existence is just like you can't invade us again. Our sodas are called Iron Brew. Goodness gracious. Chris Goodwin scouting Oren McKenzie-Gaines, the 20-year-old American attacker for SV Darmstadt 98. I'm assuming that's 1898. Gaines is still struggling to get minutes in the 2 Bundesliga. He played the first half of a friendly against the team on January 8th and started.
All right, Chancellor Rafa.
Yeah, that's a nope. And started against 1860 Munich. Yeah, there we go. Registering an assist on a goal in the 55th minute. He's a young player on a reasonably expensive squad, so he'll need to up his performances to get more minutes.
Carolyn Ikari is scouting Kellen Acosta.
It was Wehen Wiesbaden, but in the moment it seemed like a lot.
Carolyn Ikari is scouting Kellen Acosta, the 23-year-old American midfielder for Colorado Rapids. Carolyn says Acosta was one of 4 players cut from USMNT Camp Cupcake roster. This was not the January news Acosta fans were hoping for. You and Joe touched on this,
We
right?
sure did. And you can listen to that show for our thoughts on that one because I'm paranoid of saying anything negative about Kellen Acosta because I've done it in the past and then he came out and proved me wrong.
Yeah. Maybe you should do it again and he can come out and prove you wrong again.
I'm sure he will.
There's no way Kellen Acosta scores 15 goals in MLS next season.
I've been doing a lot of reverse jinxing lately. It's pretty fun. Alan Bedford scouting Jonathan Lewis. I believe we mentioned him. 21-year-old American attacker for NYCFC. Lewis made his U.S. national team debut, senior team, against Panama, coming on for Jeremy Abubase in the 66th minute. He stayed busy in the left wing spot and made a charging run down the left side, ending with a very nice assist in the 89th minute to Christian Ramirez. I feel like we maybe talked about this. Who scored the final goal in the 3-0 win.
John Adams, not that one, is scouting Cheyenne Harrison, the 21-year-old English striker for Tottenham. We have a Harrison sighting, says John Adams. Cheyenne subbed on in the 60th minute of Spurs U23's 2-2 draw at Norwich in the Premier League International Cup. These were Harrison's first minutes since he limped off the field with an injury in late September. 24-year-old Vincent Janssen is currently occupying the striker spot on the U23s, so a loan for either Harrison or Janssen, or both, before the end of January would be useful.
If John continues to send in scouting reports about Cheyenne Harrison, I will know it's not that one. If he sends in scouting reports that also include insults about the French, then I think it might be that one. Gerard Pennacook scouting Kik Peary.
Oh, he says, the Dutch are treating me well.
Speaking of, 18-year-old Dutch-American defender for Heerenveen. Ajax tied Heerenveen 4-4 at home, and Kik had quite an eventful game. He provided the assists for the first 2 goals, then lost his man to allow Ajax to go ahead with their 4th goal. Peary then scored the equalizer in extra time, volleying home a corner kick. His new role at left center back has seen mixed results, but the team around him isn't great, and he's still just 18. But who cares about that? Because I can say this, reports indicate U.S. Soccer has been in touch with him, and Kik has left the door open to representing the USA.
Let's kick that door down. Everett Wolf is scouting David Brooks, the 21-year-old Welsh midfielder for Bournemouth. Everett Wolf scouting David Brooks. Brooks earned an assist on Bournemouth counter.
On a Bournemouth counter.
Thank you. To help his side emerge with a 2-0 win over West Ham.
Articles are important.
Brooks pointed where he wanted the ball played, which put him in on goal. He drew out Fabianski before calmly rolling a pass across to Josh King to hammer home.
Quick update and spoiler alert for today's events. I believe he also got a goal and an assist, but maybe just a goal in Bournemouth's 4-0 win over Chelsea.
Oh, no. Yeah. Only an American winger can save them.
I think that's definitely true. Ben Tondera scouting Mason Holgate, the 22-year-old English defender on loan at West Brom from Everton. Since joining West Brom on loan, Holgate has been the preferred right back for the last 3 matches and has been getting the minutes that were sorely lacking at Everton.
Sagar Suramagiri is scouting Rodrigo Goes, the 18-year-old Brazilian forward for Santos / Real Madrid in June 2019. Rodrigo scored both goals for Brazil as they defeated Venezuela 2-1 in the U20 South American Championship. Both goals were well taken. Real Madrid's Twitter called them golazos, but that's probably just Madrid PR. That's a good balanced scouting report. I like it.
I think it was pretty good. What I don't think was good is that Manchester United drew 2-2 yesterday, and like there was a little bit of a downturn in form, and now I'm wondering if it's because Mike Phelan was scouting Hannes Wolf and sending the report instead of doing his job coaching Man United. But Mike Phelan scouting Hannes Wolf.
We're going to have to add a not that one to Mike Phelan.
Yeah, unless it is that one, in which case, Mike. Focus up. 19-year-old Austrian midfielder for RB Salzburg, Hannes Wolf. RB Leipzig has announced that Hannes will be transferring to Leipzig on July 1st. That might be Salzburg has announced that he'll be transferring to Leipzig and will sign a new contract through 2024. Hannes has scored 12 goals for Salzburg this season and will look to continue his run of form in their next game against Club Brugge in the Europa League knockout round on Valentine's Day.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you to everybody for the scouting report. Thank you to everybody for listening. I was thinking it's a long show, but it's actually within range, right? It's within range.
It's an hour and 20 minutes.
It's within range.
Oh, that's a long show.
I'm just excited to be back.
I know you are. I know. I guess I say this because I'm trying to like curb this early before you're like, well, we did that one show that was an hour and 20 minutes, and you agreed it was short. Let's do a 4-hour podcast.
Speaking of future podcasts, so because of the news we mentioned at the top of the show, I have a meeting with a surgeon tomorrow morning. So I will not be on the show, maybe not for the rest of the week until probably, hopefully, Saturday, when the USA plays Costa Rica. 3:30 Eastern kickoff is the listed time. It's also listed on the advice if you've got a ticket. So we actually think it might be true on Fox Sports 1.
I'm going to say 3:37.
Okay, yeah, because that's what they did last time. Yeah. So I'll be here with Taylor to watch that game, and we'll do sort of quick take, hot take, not the full review, but we'll have a show out after that game because we both have evening plans.
See, this is why I wanted to limit you right now, because suddenly if you're like a quick take, hot take.
Quick 2-hour hot take.
See, there we go. And I feel like that was kind of what you were driving at all along.
I wasn't. I was just letting our listeners know what's going on and where we'll be this week.
All right.
So
keep my eye on you.
Thank you. So Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy. And I mean that genuinely. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.